There were a number of great things to see and do at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Phoenix. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Russell Nemitz joins us with a recap of one of those can't miss events.
Well, weather and markets are still the two most important things to farmers and ranchers, and every year here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, attendees pack this room full to hear the CattleFax market and weather outlook. And today we have CattleFax's Chief Executive Officer Randy Block with us on the program. As always, your team covered the beef cattle industry supply chain from top to bottom, and let's start with the new cattle inventory number, and because that's kind of the baseline for the rest of it here in 2018.
Well, we got a new number yesterday from USDA. I think it showed us pretty much what we were expecting. We'd see growth in the U.S. cow herd in 2017. That was reflected in what they released yesterday. Probably the only number that's maybe a little different than what we'd anticipated is that supply outside of feedlot's been a little tighter than we anticipated. But with the drought situation that we saw through the fall, things are drying up. We were placing a lot of these cattle into the feed yards because there just wasn't anything for them to eat. So that elevated placements in here, and you can see that with cattle on feed numbers up at the levels they are today. We just got a lot of those cattle already in the yards that normally wouldn't have been placed for another 2 or 3 months.
So that kind of ties in with your guys' prediction for a lower market, off a few dollars versus 2017 in the different classes.
Yeah, but really not a lot of change. You know, really the market we feel like is in a pretty comfortable area in here. We've got wonderful demand, both domestically and globally. If we don't have any hiccups there, I think that's the key. Markets could be a little bit better than what we're forecasting if demand is a little bit better. The supply is the supply. We got a lot of beef, we got a lot of pork, and we got a lot of poultry, but we all know that. So now we'd like to see some positive demand surprises.
What's the data show as far as those heifers being kept back for breeding? Are we expanding? Are we looking at contracting? What's the new model look like?
Well, we expected that they're starting to show a trend of fewer heifers being held back, because remember, we've been holding heifers for the last several years. So that was a slowdown in the expansion rate that we anticipated. And the USDA came out with a number that we thought was pretty well right on in here with the slowdown in expansion. Again, the herd will peak in here, the numbers will peak in 2019 or 20. I think we're pretty well right on the cyclical trend we anticipated.
Randy, you mentioned it. I mean, demand truly is going to be key, both here at home and internationally. I mean, how important is it for trade?
Well, trade is key. You know, we sit out here and we export about 16 billion pounds of protein, and we need to grow that export pie significantly each of the next 3 years. So, you know, you look at exporting 23% of all the pork we produce, 18% of all the poultry, and obviously our beef exports. These numbers are critical.
What's that value for what trade is meaning for those prices back here at home? Put that dollar amount out there for those cattlemen and cattlewomen. It's a big number.
It's a big number. I'd say, let's just think about calf prices. We've been selling calves in here, 5.5 weight calves. Let's just call them $1.80. $60 a hundred of that value of that calf that we're selling out there is generated out of the export market. And I mean, that's a phenomenal perspective when you think about it. Again, that's our profitability in our industry, is what we're generating out of the export side. So that's a big deal.
You know, you touched on another big topic for the entire U.S. beef cattle industry, and that's to take advantage of these growing export markets, places like Korea and China. Traceability back home is going to be key.
It's going to be important. You know, we have a number of competitors around the globe that are willing to do traceability. When we look at what's going on in Australia or New Zealand, some of these key markets that we would consider as competitors, they're doing it. And we're going to have to do it to have access to some of these markets. So hopefully as an industry we'll embrace that as an opportunity to be able to get our high quality product into more consumers all around the globe.
Well, we're kind of getting ready to wrap up this current decade we're in. I know we got a couple years left of it, but what does the new decade, 2020, look? Because you touched on that today here in Phoenix as well.
Well, I think as we go into the end of this decade and early in the new decade, there's several really key things. You know, the economy is hitting on all cylinders right now, and I think with the tax reform, we're going to see that even go to another level, which is positive. We're seeing more and more concentration across the industry, so we are going to continue to see that. But along with this globalization, tremendous volatility, because you know, somebody sneezes over here, it can have a huge impact over here, and I think that's the one thing we have to recognize is it's not going to be tame. I mean, these things are going to move, and they're going to move pretty violently compared to what most of us grew up with. So I think that's an area where we're going to have to continue to adapt as people in this cattle and really agriculture business. That's what I see coming down the road.
Well, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good luck to you, and good luck to all your viewers and listeners out there. You do great work.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate that, and we also want to say congratulations to CattleFax on their 50th anniversary celebration here in 2018.